purposed. The being you really are is the God in Scripture, who is your own wonderful human imagination. Oh, also, I like, because I've seen on forums, it's been like 2 years now, but this was 2 years ago, I had encountered a lot of people asking on Neville-related forums, like, does Neville actually say you're God, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, every lecture, all the time, nonstop. If any of those people find this on YouTube or have sort of had that hesitation in their mind right now, oh, is that what he means? Yeah, that's literally what he means. And when we did Neville's Purpose Revealed on Neville's birthday last week, he said that the reason he was sent was to tell you you're God. And he was sent by you, by the depths of your own being, to tell you your own message. That's why I read any of his lectures, why you have any interest in his lectures, is because it's your message from yourself, from the depths of yourself, to tell you you're really God. Yes, the God of the Bible. Your imagination is the only creative power. It is the world. It is creating the entire world. Can you leave this auditorium tonight in the deep conviction that you are what you want to be? Are you willing to assume its joys and woes? Your assumption is your subjective appropriation of an objective fact. That is faith, and without faith, it is impossible to please him. That's a pretty nice definition of assumption and the faith right there, too. You know, assumption being just movement within mind into that which you would like to objectify. So the scene that you put in your mind, and you put yourself there and you identify it, that's an assumption, and it does externalize. Tonight, when I leave this building, I will ride home with my friend. As we travel, we will pass certain streets and see familiar objects because we will be traveling by sight. But when I walk by faith, my steps are invisible, for I will be walking in the assumption of my fulfilled desire. Paul tells us to walk by faith and no longer by sight. We all know what it is like to walk by sight, but now we are called upon to break that spell and walk by faith. I tell you, it is possible to be anything you want to be, for the believer and the God of the universe are one. Don't divorce yourself from God, for he is your I amness. Believe in your I amness, for if you do not, you will never fulfill your desire. Only by assuming you are already the one you would like to be will you achieve it. It's just as simple as that. I'm not saying it's easy, but it becomes easier with practice. If I gave a Stradivarius to one who had mastered the violin, he could lift me to the nth degree of joy. But if I put the same violin in the hands of one who could not play it, he would shortly drive me insane. It's the same violin, yet one brings harmony, while the other brings discord. You kill and make alive out of the same instrument, which is your own wonderful human imagination. You may make many discords until you learn how to play. We are here in this world of educated darkness, learning to play the instrument, which is God. You may not know anyone who would give you $10,000 right now, but if you believe all things are possible to God, and you know that God is your human imagination, you can imagine you have the money, persist in your belief, and you will have it. How? I do not know. I only know that according to your belief will it be done unto you. Do you believe that all things are possible to God? And do you believe that he is your own wonderful human imagination? Knowing that God is all love and you are capable of imagining unlovely things, you may not believe your imagination is God, but if that is true, then God is not all-powerful. In other words, an omnipotent being, which you are, has the capacity to create all manner of things, beautiful and ugly, joyous and horrible. It would not be omnipotent if it was limited. Okay? This is a very important perspective of non-duality that is never really addressed, at least by Christianity, because in Christianity we have to say, well, God's outside of the self. There's a dual existence, and the primary dichotomy is right and wrong. And so there is right, and that's godly, and there is wrong, and that is sinful, devil, whatever. Non-duality is literally all God. God is neutral. God animates and creates all things. It is all through God. and it is your choice as God which you prefer to experience. But nothing is better than anything else. No one is better than anything else. There is no actual morality. There is only your subjective sense of morality, but that too is malleable. You could just as easily fall into a state where you're very pious and have a very strict moral code that you never deviate from, as you could fall into a state where you're the most relativist that ever was, and you can see greatness in all manner of things in the world, and your sense of morality is so flexible that you'll do pretty much anything and you'll allow pretty much any behavior to take place and say, well, and excuse it in one way or another. That's both are equally possible to your mind because you're God. You couldn't do that if the dualistic view of reality was true. You couldn't do that in a world where there was like actually the devil and actually the traditional sense of moral sin. You couldn't sin. Does nobody not realize that? Anyway, that's a religious rant, but it's like if you weren't God, you wouldn't be able to think of awful things. You wouldn't like awful things. You wouldn't be able to do awful things. You wouldn't have awful things happen to you if you weren't God. Like, does nobody get that? Anyway, that's just an off-the-cuff rant, because I know most of y'all watching that are way beyond realizing that and knowing that. But to any religious person who might, or so-called religious person who might watch this back or listen to this at some point, like, dude, haven't you realized that yet? If the dualistic view of the world was true, why can you sin? You have the freedom to sin. Oh, okay, you have the freedom to sin. Guess what? Then you have the freedom to do anything you want and to experience anything you want. Why do you have that freedom? Because you're God. Okay, anyway, rant done. If you can imagine something that God cannot, then you can transcend him. If God strikes only harmonious notes and you can strike chords that produce discord as well as harmony, then you are greater than he because you can do something he can't. But I tell you, your own wonderful human imagination kills and makes alive. It wounds and heals. For all things come out of human imagination. While learning to use and believe in your human imagination, you may make alive that which you do not want. You may wound yourself in the process. But what you create in your imagination, you can uncreate. Everything can be resolved, even though while learning, horrible mistakes are made. Don't condemn for yourself for anything you have ever done, are doing, or may do. As you learn to play the instrument who is God himself, and your own wonderful human imagination, for there is no other creative power. Don't condemn yourself for anything you have ever done, are doing, or may do. What is now proved was once only imagined. My tailor uses his imagination to execute my suits for me. They must